Okay. Anu, if you don't mind, can we start with the invocation?
Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunattu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome back. We'll continue our study of Atmabodha. So we were on the topic, the benefit of this Nidithyasanam or the self-knowledge. That was the topic we were handling. So Anu, we will start with some chanting. If you don't mind, if you could chant from 43 to 48. We will cover today from 45 to 48, but a couple of verses also we'll see.
Aruneva bodhena purvam santamase hriti tata avirbhavedatma swayamevamshumaniva atma tu satatam praptopi praptavat vidyaya Atma tu satatam praptopi apraptavada vidyaya tannashe praptavat bhati swakantha bharanam yatha Atma tu satatam praptopi apraptavada vidyaya tannashe praptavat bhati swakantha bharanam yatha sthanau purushavat bhrantya krita brahmani jivata जीवस्य तात्विके रूपे तस्मिन् दृष्टे निवर्तते तत्त्वस्वरूपानुभवात् उत्पन्नं ज्ञानमञ्जसा अहं ममेति चाज्ञानम् बाधते दिग्भ्रमादिवत् सम्यज्ञानवान् योगी स्वात्मान्येवाखिलं जगत् एकं च सर्वमात्मानम् ईक्षते ज्ञानचक्षुषा आत्मैवेदं जगत्सर्वम् आत्मन्योन्यन्न विद्यते मृदो यद्वद्घटादीनि स्वात्मानं सर्वमीक्षते.
That's great. So we will get started. Again, these verses are not as complicated as the verses we saw earlier. So we should be able to cover 4 verses. So it talks about some of the benefits or some of the aspects of the self-knowledge. The theme, the very theme of this text is Atmabodha. You're trying to understand yourself. The basic question is, who am I? What am I? And what I have. So, per the vision of the Vedanta, the fundamental problem is, I don't understand myself properly. When I don't understand myself properly, this misunderstanding causes me lot of sufferings and pain, actions and reactions. So the ultimate solution for all my problem is to understand and establish in my own true nature. So that is why this textbook itself is titled as Atmabodha. So in the previous section, we talked extensively, or we analyzed extensively on the topic called Nididhyasana. Because in the self-enquiry, with a pure and a stable mind, we follow 3 steps. The first step is Shravanam, which is the study of the scripture under the guidance of a teacher for a sufficient period of time, which removes the ignorance. But still, the knowledge I get is kind of paroksha jnanam. It is not, I cannot experience it. I know it, but I cannot experience it. So this knowledge I get through this Shravanam is analyzed and removed all the doubt through the Mananam, called analysis. But still, in spite of my theoretical knowledge, in spite of my doubts cleared, still my experience is otherwise. Because the visible experience sometimes contradict the truth. We have seen that multiple times. And the technical term used in Vedanta for this is Viparita Bhavana. Viparita Bhavana. So this Viparita Bhavana is removed through a process called Nididhyasana, contemplation, or a special kind of meditation, where I reinforce myself about my own true nature. And after discussing those verses, Shankaracharya talks a few verses about the self-knowledge and the benefit and the characteristics of this self-knowledge. So on verse 44, we have seen that Atma tu satatam praptu. The Atma is never away from me. It's not that I'm not Atma up until now, and with this self-knowledge, I'm gaining something. I was always Atma. So what was the problem? The problem was aprapyat avidyayat. I could not recognize that because of my ignorance. As soon as I gained this self-knowledge, that is the benefit of this self-knowledge, immediately that wrong notion of Atma is discovered. So it is like an example was given. It is like a necklace on the neck. The lady was looking for the necklace everywhere outside. The necklace was never far away from her. The moment somebody pointed out that necklace is there on the neck, she just realized it. So like that, I am Atma. I am consciousness. That is my real nature. But I mistake myself as the body and the mind. So that's what we saw. So now we'll continue to see a few more verses. These verses are not as complicated as the verses we have seen earlier. So we can go a little bit faster. So let's go to verse 45. Anu, could you please chant this once again?
स्थाणो पुरुषवद्भ्रान्त्या कृता ब्रह्मणि जीवता जीवस्य तात्विके रूपे तस्मिन् दृष्टे निवर्तते.
No Vedanta class is complete without this example. This is the most traditional example in the Vedanta. So he tells, Sthano Purushavat Bhratya. Bhratya means delusion or misunderstanding, etc. Sthano means paused. Purushavat means you see a person. When you see a paused in a dark place, there is a very good chance that you see that as a person or a ghost. So, sthano purushavat pratya. So, because of the delusion, when I see a post I see a human being or a ghost in that. So what is my experience? Heart attack or fear, all those things will come. So my experience tells me that there is a ghost. But what exactly is the existence of that ghost? It is the post. The moment you realize that the ghost, what you see as the ghost, is nothing but a post, and there is nothing to be worried about that post, all my fear goes away. So when I consider myself as the body mind, as a limited entity, it gives me a lot of fear. But the moment I realize that the existence of the body mind is because of the Atman, the consciousness, and my true nature is that consciousness, all that will go. So the first line says, Sthano Purushavat Pratya. Because of that delusion, just like you mistake a post as a ghost, so he tells, Kritva Brahmani Jivanaha. Kritva means it's made, or you imagine, you take, or you do. What? Brahmani. Brahmani means the absolute reality, the Brahman of the universe. How do you mistake? Jivanaha. So you take the Brahman or the reality or the absolute reality as what? Individual. So when you look at yourself, you feel that, okay, I'm limited in terms of size, in terms of longevity, in terms of capacity, I'm limited, I'm completely constrained. But we don't understand the fact that why that constraint or why that false notion comes is I take myself as the body and the mind. The moment you shift your identity from the body and the mind to Atman, that will go away. So then Shankaracharya explains that. He tells, Jivasya tattvike rupe. Tattvike rupe means when you understand the real nature of the jiva, when you understand jivasya tadvike rupe, when you understand the real nature of the jiva, tasmin drishte nivartati. So you see the self and all the suffering, tatvike nivartati, all that suffering will be ending there. So it's a conclusion, right? What is the benefit of the self-knowledge is the topic of this discussion, right? So the simple example you always need to remember is the Sopna Drishtanta. Just imagine that you are dreaming. In that dreaming, you're afraid. Suddenly that dream become a lucid dream. The moment the dream becomes lucid, you still exist in the dream space and the dream time. But what happens? I'm no more afraid. I understood my real nature. When I understand my real nature, it transcends every fear, every problem. So once again, let's go through the verses once again. Sthano Purushavat Pratya. Sthano means post. Purusha means man. Pratya means because of delusion. Just because of delusion, I see a man or a ghost in a post. Kritva Brahmani Jivanaha. So I see in Brahman the Jiva, the individuality. And then he tells, Jivasya tattvike rupe. The moment you realize the actual real nature of the Jiva, which is Atma, tasmin drishte nivartati. When you see that real nature, all the problems will vanish. Again, it's a benefit of the self-knowledge. Any questions? It's a fairly straightforward verse. If there is no question, let's move to the next verse. 46.
तत्त्वत्स्वरूपानुभवात् उत्पन्नं ज्ञानमञ्जसा अहं ममेति चाज्ञानं बाधते दिग्भ्रमादिवत्.
Beautiful. For a second. Again, the benefit of self-knowledge is the topic. We just need to have an understanding or keep that topic in mind. What exactly is the topic he's discussing? So he tells tat rupat anubhavat utpannam. So what happens is tat rupa. Tat means the Atman. Rupa means the nature. When you understand the real nature of the Atma, what is going to happen? When you understand the real nature of Atma, tat tvat surupat anubhava, then what is going to happen? Jnana, ajnana, jnana, ajnanam, anjasa. Utpannam, jnanam, ajnanam, anjasa. So, utpannam means arises. When you realize your true nature, what happens? The utpannam, jnanam, anjasa. So that, sorry, I misspoke. The verse is utpannam, jnanam, anjasa. So utpannam means actually arises. Jnanam means knowledge. Anjasa means immediately. The moment you realize your true nature, you get knowledge immediately. It's not that you have to wait for some time to realize the knowledge. It's not like agriculture. You plant the seed and wait for a few years to get the crop. No. Immediately when you get the knowledge, the problem will vanishes. And how? Aham mameti. So he tells, aham mameti cha ajnanam. The ignorance. I say, this is mine. This is me. That ajnanam. The aham, who am I? That mistaken identity. And this belongs to me. If you remember our introduction to Vedanta class, we talked about two problems. One is identification, and second one is attachment. So in the current state, what is my identification? Let's make some discussion, right? So what is my identification in the current state? Think about that. Think about this identification and attachment. So in the current state, when I say I, who am I referring to?
Body, mind.
Exactly. It's Jiva, right? What is Jiva? Remember the definition of Jiva? It's a compound entity consisting of your physical body, soul, and Jivatma. That is what you refer typically as I. So when I identify myself with the body and mind, remember in the Bhagavad Gita we studied Guna Guneshu Vartanti. The physical body has its own guna. The mind has its own guna. Therefore, what is going to happen? Attachment is going to happen. So it's not my body's attachment. It becomes my attachment. And that creates all the problem. And here Shankaracharya tells, aham mameti cha ajnanam, right? So he tells immediately, the moment you get the self-knowledge, tattva swarupa anubhavat, when you realize your true nature, what is going to happen? Current identity will be shifted from jivatvam to brahmatvam. That's all. So earlier in the current state, when I say I am referring to my body, I am referring to my soul, I am referring to my jivatma. And tattva swarupe tattva swarupa anubhavat, meaning tat swarupa anubhavat. When I understand my real nature, there's a shift in my identity. The identity that was attributed to the body mind will be shifted to Atma, and I consider my body and the mind as instruments given to me. Please, this is not an abstract concept. Just to understand this, think about the dream. Always think about that Swapna Drishtanta, which is the most powerful example to understand this. So let me bring that topic once again for your understanding. In a dream, I am wandering through the Himalayas. Imagine which body is wandering through the Himalaya.
Dream body.
Dream body. Think through that.
It's a dream body.
Right? So which mind is connected with that body? Of course, it is my mind, but it is the subconscious mind, not the conscious mind. My subconscious mind, which we call it as a dream mind, the dream mind and the dream body, and then the Atma. Atma is the same. So my Atma, using my dream body and the dream mind, wanders through a dream time and a dream space. Do you agree or disagree? If you fall down and break your leg in the dream world, is that going to affect your physical leg? Think through that. You may cry in the dream. Why you cry in the dream? What is my notion in that dream? I fall down and broke my leg when I was wandering through the Himalayas. There is no hospital nearby. What is my take? I got hurt. Correct?
Yes.
What exactly got hurt there?
Dream body.
Dream body.
Exactly. If I got hurt, when I wake up in this other order of reality, that damage should have been with me, isn't it? So it is okay, or it is correct to say that my leg in the dream world got hurt. Is that going to create suffering? Absolutely. But the scope of that suffering is pretty much, the scope of that pain is pretty much limited to the dream world, dream space, and the dream time. The moment you got out of the dream, I continue to exist with a different set of equipment. And as long as that different set of equipment is not damaged, I am fine. But what was my understanding when I was in that dream? I got hurt. Extending the same example. Right now, in the dream world, who was that I had? In the dream world, if somebody asks you, who are you? You would point out to a person consisting of that dream body, dream mind, and dream Atma, dream Jivatma. Isn't it? When you got out of the dream, you continue to exist, but with a different body, and it may not be an entirely different mind, but it's a different view of your mind. So now the problem is, when I limit myself with that compound entity, I am limiting my existence to that time and space. If I identify myself with the dream body and the dream mind, I am limiting my existence to the dream space and dream time. Am I complicating this? Is it? It's easy, right? This is at least understandable. I'm not saying that it is easy, but it is understanding, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm limiting myself to dream space and dream time. I'm only a relative reality. That is, see, if you really look at the theory of relativity, this is exactly an extension of this. So when I have a relative existence, with certain equipment in a time and space. But when I transcend that time and space, I continue to exist with a different set of equipments. So why am I overly worried about the equipments and its problems? Now, point number one. Point number two is when I identify myself with the dream body and the dream mind. Let's say that my dream body likes to see a particular or like to eat a particular food. Naturally, what I do? I crave for that food. I go to the restaurants which give me that food. So the guna belongs to the body and the mind. And because of that guna, for example, means the example we talked the other day, somebody was telling, right? The chicken biryani example. I like chicken biryani. So I'm attached to the chicken biryani. But what exactly likes that chicken biryani? It is your equipment. So this 2 points Shankaracharya tells. Look at the clarity. Aham and mama. These are the two problems. Wrong identity of myself with the body and mind creates wrong attachment. So the moment tatrupa anubhavad, when you identify, when you understand that reality, tat rupa, utpannam jnana manjasa, immediately you get that knowledge immediately. And what is the benefit of that knowledge? Aham mameti cha ajnanam. It is all the wrong understanding, ignorance related to body and mind. This aham mameti ajnanam is referred by a technical term in Vedanta called adhyasa. It means I think we talked about that word, right? Adhyasa means superimposition. The classic example is the crystal. Suppose you put a blue cloth in front of a crystal, the blueness, which is not an intrinsic property of the crystal, is attributed to the crystal. So when I take myself as the body and the mind, the intrinsic properties of the body and the mind get attributed to me. This is called Anyunya Athyasa. So this, because of this Athyasa, I create this wrong identity of myself, which is Mamakara. And then actually he tells to Mameti, mine, that attachment. So the problem of identification and attachment comes, and with this self-knowledge, that goes completely. Again, a beautiful verse, just clarifies. So this is not something that just read and go, but contemplate. Means personally, the best example that was personally helpful to me was that Swapna Drishtanta, especially the example of that dream body. You take yourself as the dream body and get suffering. So that is my personal, everybody likes different example. Sometimes it's very interesting, right? Some example you think that it is the best example for you, others may not, it may not click for others. And sometimes you think that this is not a good example, that may click for others. So everybody has to find their own example and their own, there are hundreds of examples in the Vedanta, like the post and the ghost, the serpent and the rope, the Swapna Drishtanta. Then another methodology is this Drigdrishya Viveka. Another methodology is Shariratraya. So there are hundreds of teaching methodologies are there. And again, I want to reiterate the fact, what makes Vedanta very unique is not what it teaches, but the teaching methodology. Nowhere in the world you can see these many profound teaching methodology. And that is why it's important to study the Vedanta with the help of a guide or a teacher. So once again, Tatswarupat, tatrupat anubhavat. So, utpannam jnana anjasa. Aham mameti cha ajnanam. Bhathate drikpramadivat. So, how? One example is given. Suppose you go to a place on a rainy day. This text was written long time back, right? So at that point of time, everybody used to do the Sandhya Vandanam and all those things. A traditional person will do the Sandhya Vandanam looking at the directions, right? So suppose you go to a new place, it's a rainy day, you don't see the sun, and you're completely confused. But the moment you see the sun, what happens? So he tells, Bhadate dik pramadivat. The moment you see the sun, your delusion about the direction is completely gone. The moment you see the sun, you know that what is east, what is west, what is south, and what is north. So just like that, when you see the Atma, you not only understand what is Atma, you understand what is Anatma also. So that is the beauty of this verse. So let's chant one more time and then go to the next verse. Before that, let's chant and ask any questions if you have any questions or anything you want to discuss. Could you chant this one more time, Anu?
Tattvasvarupanubhavat utpannam jnanamanjasa aham mameti chajnanam badhate digbhamadivat.
So, tattvam means what here? The truth, reality, your Atma, right? Tattva Surupa. Surupa means real nature. Anubhavat means when you experience, when you understand the real nature of your Tattvam. Utpannam. Utpannam means it's a product, that is, or arises. All that is the meaning. Jnanam anjasa. Knowledge. Anjasa means immediately, spontaneously. Immediately what happens? The moment you realize your truth, jnanam, the knowledge comes. And in that knowledge, what is going to happen? Aham mameti cha ajnanam. So the ignorance about my, who am I and what belongs to me, that will completely go. Bhathate dik pramadi with. So just like the sun, the rising sun, or the sun removes the confusion about the directions, the knowledge about the Atma removes the confusion about everything. Okay, nice verse. All these verses are good for even contemplation and meditation, both. So let's go to verse 47. If you have any questions, we can ask. Otherwise, let's go to the verse 47.
Samyak vijnanavan yogi swatmanyevakhilam jagat ekam cha sarvamatmanam ikshate jnana chakshusha.
Again, the topic is benefit of this self-knowledge. It is highlighted. What is going to happen once you have the self-knowledge? So he tells, Samyak Vijnanavan Yogi. So he's talking about a yogi, a spiritual practitioner. What is the qualification of that yogi? Like Vijnanavan Yogi. He's not just a yogi, but he has the knowledge, right? A karma yogi can be considered as a yogi. An upasana yoga practitioner can be considered as a yogi. But here, a yogi endowed with knowledge, self-knowledge. Samyak. So here, what he is saying is that Samyak means very well. And he tells, Swatma Anya Akhilam Jagat. He see Swa Atma. He sees himself. Anya Eva, right? He sees only as himself. What? Akhilam Jagat. Whatever he looks in the world, he sees as himself. Because his identity has shifted to Atma. So when he see a tree, he understands that that tree is also Atma, which is me. So he cannot see anything in the universe other than himself. That's the Vedic vision, right? Amazing vision. Like, then when you see yourself in everything, you cannot hate anybody. Some people might be doing wrong thing because of their delusionary identity, but you cannot hate them. Yes, you may try to stop them from what they are doing, but you cannot hate anybody. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmani eva anupashyati. Isha Upanishad tells. That person sees everything as himself. Right? Atmani eva buddhihi pandidaha. Bhagavad Gita. Pandita samadarshinaha. Bhagavad Gita. Again, that person who has seen the Atma, he sees only Atma. So that is why Bhagavad Gita tells such a person will not differentiate with anybody in terms of caste, creed, color, nationality, financial status, nothing. You cannot differentiate anybody. You cannot look one person as high and the other person as low, because everything is nothing but Atma. So that's the vision, right? So then he tells, Ekam cha sarva atmanam. There is only one Atma which manifests as everything. So let me ask you a simple question. Somebody was telling me, I understand when you see another person with Jiva, I understand that, yeah, he has Atma. But why should I look upon a rock as Atma? Where is the Atma for the rock? Can you answer?
You mean rock meaning rock or idol?
No, even a rock, not idol. See, the Atma manifests in this world in two different forms, right? One is matter, the other one is consciousness. Atma, all the matter is derived from the Atma, Brahman, the reality. If you remember that Bhagavad Gita chapter 7, Krishna said, I have a higher nature and I have a lower nature. Both this higher nature and the lower nature comes from me only. And what is that lower nature? It is Bhumi, Apaha, Bhumirapo Nalo Vayuhu, Kham Mano Buddhi Revacha, Ahankaramidiyam me Pinnaha Prakriti Ashtadhaha. So from the undifferentiated consciousness, what happened? The material, the fundamental elements of the universe was manifested. The 5 states of physical matter, the 5 states of subtle matter. And the combination of these 5 states of physical matter and the subtle matter is the entire material universe. So if you ask, what exactly is the cause of the material universe? It is Brahman. It is Atma. Now, when you have a physical body, that physical body cannot reflect the consciousness. But certain manifestations has a physical body and a subtle body. In those manifestations, the Jivatma get reflected and you say that they have life. So whether an entity has life or not, it is nothing but Atma. The existence is Atma. The consciousness is Atma. And that is why we used to refer Atma with a term, calling these two out. Anybody remembering? It's a popular term for Atma.
Jivatma, Paramatma.
No. The material aspect of the universe is described through a word. The consciousness is described through a word. So the Atma is
Paraprakriti and
Prakriti.
Paraprakriti, no?
Sat Chit
Chitananda.
Ananda. And what is Sat? Existence. Sat means existence, that which exists. So when you take a material, right? When you take water, what is the existence of water? You may say that water molecule. What is water molecule? Hydrogen and oxygen. So if you go to 2 levels down, the existence of water is hydrogen and oxygen. Now if you go down, further down, subatomic particle, all those down, you may come to energy, etc., etc., etc. Where exactly it goes and end? It is Brahman, the reality. So that is why the Brahman, the reality, or the Atma is called as the fabric of the creation. Fabric of the creation is Atma. Everything is Atma. I may see infinite manifestation. 105 elements. Combination and permutation and combination of this 105 elements is the infinite number of objects I see everywhere. But what we say is that even that 105 elements is derived from this one Atma. So the existence of every being is Atma. Now, other than matter, other than the physical and subtle matter, there is one more manifestation of Atma, which is the real nature of the Atma, that is consciousness. So the Atma is of the nature Sat and Chit. And that is why we call it as Satchidananda Atma.
Sat is existence. Chit.
Consciousness.
Oh.
Sat, Chit, Ananda. And what is the nature of the Sat, Chit, Atma? Contentment. That is why it is Ananda. This is the popular term. So this verse is again a beautiful verse. Shankaracharya tells, let's chant one more time and go over the meaning one more time. So can you check? Yeah.
Samyak vijnanavan yogi svatmanyevakhilam jagat ekam cha sarvamatmanam ikshate jnana chakshusha.
Ikshase jnana chakshusha, meaning with that eye of knowledge, right? So Vedanta is considered as a pramana. Pramana means prama karanam, a means of knowledge. So the knowledge of the Vedanta is considered like an eye. So with the teachings of Vedanta, the yogi, what type of yogi? Vijnanavan yogi, a yogi who has learned and experienced the teaching of Vedanta. What he see? Satma Akhilam Jagat. He tells the entire world, not separate from that Atma. Ekam cha sarvam Atmanam. He sees the entire world as Atma and himself not separate from that Atma. This is the vision of that yogi. So this is the benefit of self-knowledge. And let's listen to one more verse.
Atmaivedam jagat sarvam आत्मनोऽन्यन्न विद्यते मृदो यद्वत्घटादीनि स्वात्मानं सर्वमीक्षते
Atmai Vedam Jagat Sarvam. Atma Evam Idam Jagat Sarvam. Atma Evam Idam Jagat Sarvam. Idam means this. Eva means verily, certainly. Jagat Sarvam, the entire universe. The entire universe is nothing but Atma. The sun is the Atma. The unicellular organism is Atma. The plant is Atma. The elements are Atma. Atma eva idam jagat sarvam. The entire universe is nothing but Atma. The next verse that he tells, Atmano anyat na vidyate. Nothing exists other than Atma. When you say that the sun exists, if you go 2 steps down, the sun is Atma. If you say that the rock exists, the rock is nothing but Atma. Everything in this universe is nothing but Atma. Then, so he tells, Mrido yatvat khadadini. Just like you see infinite number of pots. You may see a clay pot, you may see a clay jar, you may see a clay spoon, you may see hundreds of manifestations of clay. But the reality behind all that equipments is nothing but the clay. You can call it as a clay pot for transactional purpose, but the real existence of the clay pot is clay. Swami Chinmayananda used to joke. This sentence is a classic quote from his talk called The Logic of Religion. So he tells, like, imagine a mud pot talk to the other mud pot. Look at these idiots. They call me as clay. They call me as mud. I'm not a mud. I'm a pot. So he comments, if a pot says that, we sympathizes with that pot and confirms that it's a muddy pot. That's the language he used. So like that, yes, for transactional purpose, a spoon is different from a watch. A computer is different from a car. Each has its own purposes. But understand that everything is a manifestation of that Atma. So, Swatmanam Sarvam Ichyate. So that person sees everything as Swa Atma, as himself. This is the universal vision of the Atma. This is the universal vision of the Veda. The true vision of the Veda is this. It won't differentiate anybody. So this is what it is, the 4 verses. It talks about shifting my identity to Atma and what exactly, how that shift manifests. I see everything as Atma. I see my identity separate from my equipments. These are the 4 verses we covered. So we can chant. Before chanting, I had a question. Somebody asked me a question. So after listening to Yoga Sutra class, the question popped up. The question was, what is the difference between Sankhya school and Vedanta school? It's a big question. We will cover when we start Yoga Sutra. But just wanted to highlight one difference. Essentially, both are derived from the Vedic schools, Sankhya and Vedanta and Yoga. All are parts of the six Shad Darshana, right? There are six vision. Vedic means schools derived based on the vision of the Veda. The goal of these six schools is nothing but self-realization or moksha. The difference between Sankhya and Vedanta, Sankhya is it's not a full Advaita vision. Sankhya feels that there is two fundamental realities of the universe. One is matter and the other one is consciousness. But Vedanta tells that even the matter is a derivative of the consciousness. So that's the answer. We'll talk more about this in the Yoga Sutra.
So Rajesh, that's the Purusha and the Prakriti?
Correct. That is Purusha and Prakriti. So Purusha is consciousness and Prakriti is matter. And per Sankhya, both are means right from the beginning, it is there. So they take this as, means you can call it as like Shiva and Shakti. One is the masculine aspect, the other one is feminine aspect. But this Sankhya considers these two as realities. But Vedanta tells even the matter is a derivative of that consciousness.
So when we say matter is a derivative of consciousness, so it doesn't have consciousness. I didn't.
It has, see, matter is, let's say that it is a derivative of Atma. That's it. So consciousness is the real nature of Atma. And for any object to manifest that consciousness, consciousness is like sunlight. Where exactly the sunlight get reflected?
Okay, only when the object is there.
Only when the object can reflect.
Correct.
So any derivative of Atma, which has a subtle body, without a subtle body, the consciousness cannot means reflect it. Even though the sunlight is everywhere, only certain medias reflect the sunlight. So like that, when you have the subtle body, physical body combination, then only the consciousness gets reflected. So that's why when a person is dead, he's not conscious.
So matter is also
Matter is also Atma.
Atma.
That is the vision of Advaita Vedanta. But when you go to Sankhya, it slightly varies. It doesn't matter. On the higher goal, it doesn't matter. But if you want to understand that subtle differences, these are some of the differences.
So that is also Sat Chit.
Which one?
Stone.
Yes, stone is also Sat. The Sat in stone is nothing but Atma.
Only in Advaita, though, right? In Sankhya, it will be the matter.
Correct. Sankhya, it will be matter. It is different.
And they get that philosophy from the same Vedas, or is it a different scripture?
No, same Veda. So Maharshi Kapila derived that thought. It's like Newtonian physics and Einsteinian physics, right? Newtonian physics created a model to explain certain phenomena that was within the visibility of Newton. That doesn't mean that Newtonian physics is wrong. Newtonian physics has its validity in this time and space. But the moment you go beyond that, you may need a higher model to explain the same thing. So if you look at the Veda, you can always come up with a model to explain that all these observed phenomena using Sankhya. So the scope of the Sankhya, what exactly it deals with, can be clearly explained with that matter Purusha Prakriti model. But when you go to the self-realization, that the finest aspect of this, it may need a different model. So I would consider Vedanta and Sankhya as two different models looking at the higher. That's it.
Interesting.
It's very complicated. Even within Vedanta, you have three schools. Dvaita, Advaita and Vishishta Advaita. The difference is like you are Dvaita means you are separate from God. Vishishta Dvaita means you are part of God. And Advaita means you are God. Again, three different point of views. Don't worry too much about this philosophical aspect. What is good for our spiritual growth is very important. And Advaita Vedanta is certainly one of the most profound model. But it's not very easy, right? Without, you need to go in depth to appreciate the greatness of Advaita Vedanta. I cannot confidently talk about Sankhya to this level because I haven't gone to the Sankhya Karika or Sankhya scripture to this level. So I'm sure, but the metaphysical model used in Yoga Sutra is Sankhya. Of course, it has here and there, it goes beyond Sankhya, but the basic model is Sankhya. So that is why all these terminologies comes in there, and that is why this doubt was raised. Okay. So that's it. So we covered 4 verses. I know if you could chant those 4 verses once again, we can stop there and continue. We covered up to verse 48. So the new topic will begin next week. And then now 21 words. So in 7 sessions, we can cover Atmabodha. And so by June, we should be covering Atmabodha. We'll take a small break, and September, we can start with Isha Upanishad. So this whole series started because of the request to start Upanishad. So I was not immediately starting the Upanishad. So we did 16 sessions on Introduction to Vedanta, and then we covered 68 verses of Atmabodha. Now we can confidently start Upanishads and enjoy the beauty of that Upanishad, even with the commentary of Shankaracharya. That will be an intense study, but I'm sure you all will enjoy it. It will just open up something great into our life. I felt so good after studying 1 or 2 Upanishads when I started. So if we can study those 10 or 11 Upanishads in a very systematic way, it'll be really good. So if you can spend some time along with that study, we all will be blessed. It'll be that type of experience we are going to get.
So why start with Rig? Is it because of easier than the other Vedanta?
No, we're starting with Isha Upanishad.
Oh, we're starting with it.
Isha Upanishad. It's a convention. It's not the easiest one. So yeah, no, but every Upanishad is a vertical slice of that subject matter of the Vedanta. So if you really look at what is Vedanta, Vedanta is referred as the subject matter of the Upanishad. So Upanishad subject matter was initially called as Vedanta because it is the end portion of the Veda. Upanishad comes at the end of the Veda. So that is what is Upanishad. And later what happened was any work which was derived based on the teachings of the Upanishad was also considered within the scope of the Vedanta. So that is why Bhagavad Gita and all these Brahma Sutra and all these work of Shankaracharya comes under the category of Vedanta. Bhagavad Gita, interestingly, it mainly predominantly talks about Vedanta, but it pulls a lot of stuff from yoga, and it pulls a lot of something from Sankhya. For example, the Sattva Rajas Tamas model, it is Sankhya. So it is a multiply inherited book, predominantly Vedanta, but it relies on yoga and Sankhya also a little bit. These are all for academic purposes, okay? These things are not important for our spiritual journey. but since the academic question was asked, need to answer in an academic way. Okay. So Anu, could you chant?
Yeah. Sthanam purushavadbhrantya krita brahmani jivata जीवस्य तात्विके रूपे तस्मिन् दृष्टे निवर्तते तत्त्वस्वरूपानुभवात् उत्पन्नं ज्ञानमञ्जसा अहं ममेति चाज्ञानम् बाधते दिग्भ्रमादिवत् सम्यक् विज्ञानवान् योगी स्वात्मन्येवाखिलं जगत् एकं च सर्वमात्मानम् ईक्षते ज्ञानचक्षुषा आत्मैवेदं जगत् सर्वम् आत्मन्योन्यन्न विद्यते मृदो यद्वत्खटादीनि स्वात्मानं सर्वमीक्षते.
Thank you. Let's do the Purnamadam and stop.
Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.